Hello and welcome back to the Stationary Dev and to another new fountain pen review video. And this is once again another new fountain pen to me. It is a pen that has always intrigued me in terms of looks and finish and design. And as you probably can tell from the thumbnail and the title of the video, we're talking about the Lamy Studio fountain pen. The Studio usually comes in some really great finishes and is a really cool looking design and good looking pen, but it uses the same steel nib as the Safari and the All-Star, which for me is not my favorite steel nibs. In fact, it's some of my least favorite steel nibs. That is just a personal preference, especially because I like the fine and the extra fine, and Lamy seems to have a lot of problems with their fine and extra fine steel nibs. They're just not the best in my experience. So I've always kind of been hesitant to spend, whatever the steel nib version goes for, $80 or so, on a, Safari nib in a cool design. Um, so, but on but and the but. They do make a few finishes in the Studio design that come stock with the 14 karat gold nib. It is the same kind of design of a nib that would slide on to a Safari or an All-Star or something like that, but it is 14 karat gold. And I do have a number now of Lamy 2000s that I really enjoy the gold nibs on and the grinds on those. And so I have faith, or at least I have enough faith to give them a go in the Studio model with an 18 karat nib. So I've always been on the lookout for either a secondhand one or one for a good price, from a seller or a pin swap or whatever. And so enter Endless Pens on for their Black Friday, I guess, week sale. They had a sale on the Lamy Studio with the 14 karat gold nib, and they actually had two concurrent sales on this pen that sort of stacked on top of each other, which made this one just a unbeatable deal for me. It's one that I couldn't pass up. I'd already been on the lookout for one for a good price. It's in the finish that I wanted, and extra fine 14 karat gold nib. And so I had to pull the trigger on it. I purchased it like I said, from Endless Pens for $118. That's with shipping, so it was a little cheaper before shipping, but the shipping got it to $118. Usually, this goes at retailers the price kind of fluctuates depending on sales and stuff, but it usually goes between about $170 and $185 for the depending on your finish and everything. It can even go a little bit more. I think the all blacked out one is a little bit even more than that. But even then, even at full, at that retail price at most retailers, that's not a bad price considering that it's an all metal pen with a 14 karat gold nib, and especially in this market, in this day and age, where you have platinum 3776s that are over $200 now. You have Sailor Pro Gear Slims that are over $200, $240 or so for a Pro Gear Slim, which is just crazy. You can get a full metal gold nib fountain pen from Lamy for $170, $180, which is still a good deal. But I mean, at the $118, I couldn't pass it up. So we have yet another new pen in the collection, which is good for you guys because you get to see a review and an impression of this pen at no cost to you yet. So this is sort of the packaging, the Lamy packaging kind of, or, pen packaging varies depending on your distributor and retailer and everything. But this is the packaging that we got here. It comes in this sort of envelope or slide box here, made in Germany. C. Joseph Lamy, Heidelberg. On this side, we have, I guess, some instructions for recycling. nothing too exciting there. We slip off that. We get a Lamy box, also in the kind of textured cardboardy design, but still looks very clean, very nice, very German. We open it up, and this was a sticker that Endless Pens gave me. New pen day, yay! I thought I had lost that sticker, so that's kind of nice that I put it in the box. You also get a little foam piece that kind of, I guess, helps it from rattling around too much in the actual box. You have a Lamy box that's kind of felt on the inside. It's very soft feel box on the inside. We get our pen that is in its packaging. Underneath here, we get a couple things. You have your typical, your just normal Lamy instruction manual and sort of, I guess, sales material that sort of shows you some of their designs and stuff. And then filling instructions for all their different pens on that side. And then you do get a Lamy blue ink cartridge. It's a good size and a decent ink. I'm starting to get quite a collection of Lamy ink cartridges, so maybe need to quell that a bit or start using some of them. Even better. The Lamy box, unlike some of the Pilot boxes I have, it actually has a magnet here at the front, so it does snap shut when it does close. So just kind of cool, I guess, for whatever that's worth. And we get to the pen. So this is in the, I believe it's called the Palladium trim. They have this Palladium trim. They have sort of a shiny red one, shiny black one, and then I think they have an all blacked out sort of matte black and black nib and everything pen. But this is the Palladium version, which is the version that I did want, and we'll see here in a minute when I come to unbox it. It's a very smart looking pen, a very sleek looking pen. In the still nib version, they do a lot of like yearly, I think they do usually like, or at least for a while they were doing about 2 yearly finishes, special edition kind of, or limited edition finishes on them that always looked really, I thought always looked really good on the Lamy Studio. You have a little bit of Lamy branding there on the top of the cap. The top of the cap there is just kind of a round, flat rounded fingerprint magnet polished steel there. On the back you have a little lip here, which you'll see why when we uncap it, and a same kind of flat rounded polished end there. The clip on the Studio is really interesting. It's a really cool clip. A lot of people call it like a propeller clip, but it's really cool because it goes from flat here to being flat here. So it kind of does like a optical illusion kind of thing. That's really neat. I think it's a really cool design for a clip. One thing you'll see with the Studios is people do have a problem with this clip getting loose eventually and being able to move side to side, and that sort of ends up sometimes scratching the finish. And you'll get a little line under where the clip meets the pen body. But it has a good springiness to it. I think it's an effective clip, even with the design choices. It is an effective clip, so it still works just as any other clip would work. You just might be careful with that getting loose, being attached to stuff or as you wear it, if you're super picky about your finishes. I'm not, so that doesn't bother me at all. It is a push cap, which once again kind of gives it an edge on something like the Platinum 3776 or a Sailor Pro Gear or something like that. So it is a push cap. Underneath, you have a very small step down to the section there where the section and the pen body are separated, and it also unscrews right there, but you can't even really see the seam where it unscrews yet, which is just that Lamy design and engineering. That's really nice. It is kind of a cigar shape, so it goes out and then back in to the nib. You have a concave kind of section, or I guess that's convex section, where it kind of bulges out and slims down to the tip. On most Studio models, even the 14 karat gold ones, this section is polished steel. So the same kind of steel that's like on the cap. If that bothers some people, maybe consider one of the finishes that has a textured grip. This one is the anodized steel or aluminum or whatever it is, the anodized metal. They also have one, I believe, in the steel nibs that has kind of a rubberized grip there. So if that's a problem for you, they do have some options for you to kind of help out. If you're worried about your hands getting sweaty or slipping down, you grip really tight or really low, and you feel that slipping down, they do make designs for you. I usually don't have problems with smooth sections or anything. I also, though, tend to grip my sections back up here, so it's never really a problem for me. But I did get this one that does have the nice anodized finish to match the barrel. And then underneath, we do get a nib shot of the 14 karat gold extra fine Lamy nib. I think I can just see a little bit of blue ink there, which you do see. So this is a brand new pen, but Lamy does dip test all of their pens, whether it's a Safari or a 2000 or 14 karat gold Studio. They dip test all of their pens to make sure that they're writing as they want them to write. And so you will have a little bit of leftover ink in there from Lamy. So if you just want to run that through the water or the sink real quick just to get that off, you can, but don't think that your pen is used or something. If you get a brand new Lamy pen and you open it up and there's blue ink all over the feed and the nib, that's Lamy helping you out or trying to help you out. So yeah, regular feed and a 14 karat nib. This one, most of their 14 karat gold nibs, they do have a black version that's black, and then that middle bit is gold, but this one is silver, or I guess rhodium plated gold, and then you also have the actual like pure gold sort of inner side there. Let me see if I can get to focus. There you go. You can see it real well. And this is the extra fine. I expect it to be a little broad for what I consider an extra fine, but that's it's a German nib, so it's going to have that little bit of variation. It does post if you want to post it, and it is kind of meant for posting because, like I mentioned, you'll kind of notice it has this little lip down there at the bottom of the section. It also has that same lip at the back of the pen. So this one actually posts very securely and has a snap there. So the cap actually snaps on the back the same way it snaps on the front. It does back weight it because it is an all metal pen. It does add a good bit of length and a little bit of back weighting because it is a metal pen and a metal clip, and so a lot of the weight is right in here on the thing. But if you're a poster, this pen is meant to be posted, or it's designed to accommodate posters, let's say it that way, because I don't post my pen and it's super comfortable for me. Most of the weight right now is right here in the grip section, which is perfect for me. We unscrew the section here and we get to the included converter. This has a little plastic insert there, so it is plastic on plastic threads, which is nice that you don't have any metal on plastic going on here with the metal pin, but it does have a plastic sort of liner that goes the length of the pin there, plastic threads, and you get the Lamy converter. This is the one without the little fins that you'll see on like some of the Safari and All-Star ones that have little fins on the side. This is the one without the fins, so it sits a little bit deeper in the section here. So yeah, just something to note there if you're buying a converter for the pen, but you shouldn't because it does come with the converter. Lamy converters are okay. I'm not a fan of like the ridged sort of thing. I think it makes it a lot harder to turn than it needs to be, but whatever. That's a nitpick. But it goes snugly in there, doesn't wiggle around. Let's give it a little bit of a tap test here, just for fun. Yep, doesn't rattle against the pen, even if I'm tapping it pretty hard. So that's a nice little thing to note. And then the cap goes on securely with a little kind of a muted or a softened kind of click or thud. So there you go. Actually, it's kind of satisfying. to close, but it does fit very securely. It doesn't have any wobble. You can spin it a little bit if you want to do that for whatever reason, but it stays pretty snug, pretty secure. So let's get this thing inked up and see how it writes. I'm going to ink it up with some Scribo ink. So this is, let me back it up because the Scribo bottles are massive. Scribo is a company. They make excellent pens, fantastic Italian pen maker, great nibs. They basically bought all the old Omos stuff and make pretty much as close to a vintage Omos nib as you can get, but their inks are severely underrated. They make one of my all-time favorite inks, which is Blue Cosmico, and this is sort of their namesake ink, or their sort of branded, or their, I guess, their company color ink, which is Grigio Scribo, so Scribo Gray. And as you can see, the kind of swatch there matches their boxes that their pens and their inks come in. But very nice packaging, fountain pen ink, and they are giant bottles. So this is a 90 milliliter or 3 ounce bottle. They're actually, I watched an interview with the I believe the owner of Scribo, and he actually got these bottles. He was at a cafe or like a curbside store, market, whatever, and saw these jam jars and thought they would be perfect for ink. And so he asked them, you know, and ended up getting the jam jars and putting his ink in the jam jars. So Scribo ink comes in these giant, substantial, like this could be a murder weapon kind of bottle. It does have this cool design though, where if you have multiple of them, you can stack them pretty securely because the top of the cap of the bottom one fits in nicely to this bottom cavity here. It is kind of squat, but it does have a big opening, and it's a lot of ink. Like, it's going to take you a while to ever have to worry about getting low on ink or having trouble filling it. But it does have a nice little tie like the Iroshizuku ones, and then all of the sort of little emblems and colors on it match the color of the ink. So it's basically like a swab of the ink that's inside. Very cool bottles. Sometimes they get a little hard opening because it literally is a jam jar. And so sometimes those can get a little hard to open. But hopefully we won't have any trouble with that today. Also, keep in mind that this had Lamy blue ink in it. So the color might be, it is a bluish gray, but our color might be even more blue to start out here. So we'll see. Because I'm not going to worry about washing it out or anything. I'm just going to fill it straight up from the bottle. Once again, a significant amount of ink. So they are a little expensive, but if you actually work out like the price per ounce, the Scribo inks are actually a pretty good value, or, you know, a reasonable value for quality ink, quality packaging. And yeah, I think they're severely underrated as a ink company. So there is our inked pen. Probably got just a touch more blue there with the leftover Lamy blue, but I'm not too worried because it's already a bluish gray ink. So a hint, super small amount of blue, not even a drop getting in the bottle, it's going to be okay. But like I said, if you're worried about that kind of thing, just rinse your nib and feed under a faucet or something before you ink your Lamy pen if you don't want to cross-contaminate anything or whatever. Or just fill the converter itself first without dipping the pen in the ink, and you can wash it out later. So I'm just getting that ink off of the section there. You can see the kind of color of the ink. It's a really nice blue-gray. The first pen I tried it in, this ink, I found it a little dry, so we'll see how it does in this pen. Paper, as always, is just regular Rhodia 80 GSM paper, and this should write right up because we just dipped it in the ink. So We have the Lamy Studio. And this one has an extra fine 14 karat gold nib. That is, I don't know if it's just because it's super wet right now. I'm gonna lock it there so it stops zooming out. But that is very broad for an extra fine. That's even broader than I thought it would be. Our ink, maybe you'll even out here in a minute. Our ink is Scribo Grigio Scribo. So Scribo Gray. Here's a very wet, and this is a beautifully shading ink. When I bought my Scribo Fill pen from Scribo, they actually sent a handwritten letter from the makers of the pen. It was full, I mean, it was a full A5 handwritten letter, and they used the Scribo Gray ink, and it just sold me. That's why I have a giant bottle of this ink, is because it just sold me on the ink. It had beautiful shading and was just a really nice gray. I'm not usually a super gray kind of guy, but I really was taken with this gray ink. Let me do a very smooth first impressions. Very, very smooth. Like I said, it might just be because this is a wet, broad writer, but it is very smooth, very wet. Let's do a wetness test. That's pretty absurd for an extra fine, but we'll roll with it. You all saw the lettering on the nib that it is an extra fine. Let's do our sentence. And a little speed test, which I don't have any doubt. So this is going to pick up or keep up very well. Yeah, absolutely nothing. This is a wet writing pen. Very wet, juicy, broad, very smooth. You probably hear that little touch of audible feedback, but you don't feel any of it when you're writing. Like, you don't feel any of that feedback. It is just glassy smooth, just like their Lamy 2000 nibs, just glassy smooth. Very smooth. Audible feedback, but if you were blindfolded, you can't feel it. Yeah, that's insanely wet. Let me do let me do a quick comparison just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So that's the 14 karat gold Lamy Studio with an extra fine nib. This is a pilot vanishing point that already has a pretty broad nib. This is in fine, so it's a size up, but this is a vanishing point fine, and the Lamy is way broader than it, and a little bit wetter, as wet. What else do I have? Here's a German extra fine and the Kaweco piston, AL Sport piston. So this is a Kaweco EF. So a little more apples to apples in terms of a German extra fine to whatever the heck that one is. Yeah, and here is like a Lamy, this is a Lamy Swift rollerball, just for fun. So it's thicker than the rollerball, even, which is I think it's a medium point rollerball. Size and wetness comparison. Let me get our focus right and our lighting right. There you can tell it is very broad, very wet. So it is the broadest thing that's on that piece of paper right now. The vanishing point is a Japanese nib, but it is basically a size up from a Japanese nib. You can see it compared to like the Kaweco. It's much broader than that, and the extra fine Studio is broader than that. The Kaweco EF is, I would say, a true German EF or a true European EF. The Studio is at least a size, maybe 2 sizes up. It's about what I would expect a medium nib to write like, honestly. And then it's even more broad than a medium ballpoint, or a medium roller ball, sorry. Medium roller ball. Not necessarily a bad thing because the nib feels amazing. Like this is a great, I don't know, like signature pen or letter writing pen. It is very wet, very glassy smooth. It'll show off your ink. I mean, we're not getting as much shading as I think this ink could offer, but you do get very good shading. You can see the shading very well in the ink. You can see the color of the ink very well. But yeah, that's pretty absurd. Very broad. Very wet. Very smooth. Like glassy smooth. Yeah, I mean, I can't get that across enough. So, final thoughts about the pen. I really like it. Besides it being 2 sizes too big in terms of, I guess, what I was expecting or what I generally go for, which is usually like a Japanese extra fine or true Japanese fine or Japanese extra fine. Something like this Kaweco extra fine is generally what I tend to prefer. Other than that, like, I'm super pleased with it. It's the best Lamy nib in that kind of folded style that I've written with or that I've experienced. I would definitely say size down if you want to get a true size for what you're ordering. If you love juicy broad nibs, maybe get the Studio in a broad, or if you can find them in a double broad or a stub or something, that would be. I can't imagine what a broad. If this is extra fine, I can't imagine what a broad nib in this nib would write like. That would be just a fire hose. But if you're into that, there you go. Glassy smooth, good price. Once again, I paid $118 for this. You can find it regularly for about $170, which is, once again, cheaper than a lot of entry-level gold nib fountain pens. And, or right there with a lot of entry-level gold nib fountain pens. So I think it's a fantastic value from a design standpoint, from a functionality standpoint. It's an all-metal pen, gold nib. The craftsmanship is there. The balance and the feel is there. The nib is there. If I wanted to do something crazy and take this nib off and use it in another of my Lamy pens, I could do that, or switch out the nibs. What I'll probably end up doing is maybe get this one ground down to a true extra fine, just because I love the smoothness and the wetness of it. It is tuned perfectly. So obviously that dip testing that they do at the factory, works very well. I love that smoothness and the wetness, but I'd probably get it down maybe a size at least, probably 2 sizes by a nib meister to help out with that. Otherwise, it'll be a great pen for testing inks, and good shaders and maybe even shimmer ink or whatever would work very well in this pen. It's very free flowing. But yeah, very impressed with the Lamy Studio. It is basically what I wanted, right? So I wanted a studio that didn't have that still nib, which I knew would be a disappointment for me. Instead, I'm very impressed with the gold nib on this one. Love the feel of the pen, the build of the pen. We'll see how the clip holds up. And yeah, I can highly recommend this one for you if you're considering a purchase or you're considering your first gold nib pen. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better value than this one, maybe. Yeah, full size, all metal gold nib pen. That's, quality control is there. The nib is super smooth and wet. It comes with a converter. Everything you need is there. So, yeah, maybe the only nitpick I would have is the size of the nib doesn't really match what you order. And I think Lamy could probably do some more with the 14 karat gold versions. Put some special editions of these things out there, and you'd have probably me sold on one or two of them. But other than that, I'll sort of leave the review there. And if you've made it this far, this one kind of went a little bit long. That's kind of how they're trending lately. But if you made it this far, please go ahead and give it a like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Leave a comment if you have any questions at all about this pen or ink or any other things that you see, or any questions you have about fountain pens or inks. If you're new to the hobby or need any advice or want to discuss anything, please feel free to leave a comment. I try to get back to all of those. And until next time, I hope you all have a good rest of your day or night. And until next time, I'll catch you later.